and welcome. I'm Megan Mitchell. I'm an Emerson alumna from the class of 2014 and a member of the Alumni Association Board of Directors. Now, on behalf of the board and Emerson College, it is such a pleasure to welcome you to our Alumni Achievement Awards. The Distinguished Alumni Award is the highest honor that's bestowed upon alumni by the Emerson College Alumni Association. Now, the award recognizes an individual's significant achievements, their lifelong body of work, and also the contributions to their profession and their community. Established in 1978, this honor acknowledges an individual's service to society and their personal commitment to the mission of Emerson College. Now, established in 2003, is the Young Alumni Award, and it's bestowed upon a member of the alumni community who's graduated within the past 10 years and has made significant achievements and contributions to their profession and community. It is my pleasure to introduce you all to these winners this year. They're amazing. The 2022 Distinguished Alumni Award recipients are Marty Cook, class of 1982 and 2000, Tina M. McDuffie, class of 1997, and Rob Payne, class of 1992. Now, our Young Alumni Achievement Award recipient is Hunter Reese from the class of 2017. So let's take a look at some of their incredible achievements. All right, so I am so pleased now that we are joined by our award winners, our panelists here. We've got Marty, Tina, Rob, and Hunter, and thank you all so much for coming.
Pleasure.
Yeah, let's do it, you guys. And what I love about the four of you, which I think we're going to get more into as we kind of delve into your specific journeys, is that you kind of represent the best of Emerson in different facets of what Emerson is. And so first off, I want to kind of go back to Boylston Street or Beacon or wherever your Emerson experience was, because I know the wall was a thing, 40, 30 years ago. Now it's not really a thing. And now we've got the theater district of Emerson. So take me back, Rob, we'll start with you since you're coming off of a great Oscars run, about your time at Emerson and maybe some of the organizations that helped you out along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it was a much different school when I went there. Then, it had a different location. It was just I'm not totally familiar the way things are there now, but it was a much different place. So the wall was sort of the common gathering point for everybody. There was a lunch truck that was out there every single day, and between classes, everybody would go outside, and that's where you'd meet up in between classes. And I think it was 130 or 132 Bacon Street. That was the primary location, right on the corner of Boylston and Beacon.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that really fondly. I mean, that was, I don't know. It was a unique experience that I think it's hard to put into words and explain properly.
Tina, if you wanted to jump in, were you a Wall alum? Was that your era?
You know what? I was, but I didn't hang out at the Wall that much. I was Charles Gate, Finn's Gate. So I was going back and forth. I had friends who were in both of those dorms. So we were going back and forth and hanging out in like the hallways and stuff like that. So that's what I remember. And ERS, I was an ERS maniac. Yeah, that was, so I wasn't a Wall kid. I was definitely a Charles Gate, Finn's Gate kid.
And those Fensgate apartments now are some of those views.
Yes.
Which explains the modern Emerson.
Yes.
That's true. Marty, any chime in on your experience?
Yeah, I was a Wall girl. Loved the Wall. I remember the food truck fondly. I remember I can even remember what I used to eat there, a steak bomb. I mean, how disgusting, but fabulously gross. But yeah, I love the Wall. It was a great place to meet. It was a great place to hang out. And, people would just walk by and you could see people and catch up. It was fabulous. I miss it.
Yes. And, Hunter, we're kind of in the same boat here. What was your fondest memory of Emerson?
Ooh, that's so hard. I would have to say my brain automatically goes to freshman year. I just think like getting acclimated to the Emerson way of life and meeting friends who I lived with afterwards and am still best friends with today. That has to be the best experience that comes to me. Just like that first year was so fun and so life-changing for me that it really made a difference. Never a Wall person, but all I can think about now is how different little building and that dining hall are.
Why don't we kind of go into maybe some organizations that you participated in at Emerson, and also kind of transition that into like what you're doing now so that we can all kind of hear the contrast, the gradual, rise up to where your journey has led you. And so why don't we just stick on with you, Hunter?
Sure. I had known that I wanted to do journalism or broadcast or entertainment journalism pretty much since I started. I got involved with WEBN pretty quickly, and the experiences I've had there really set me up for success in the future. I also did Common Agenda, and I was the music reporter there. That was so much fun as well. Let's see, what else? I did Quidditch for a little bit. I played Quidditch for my first semester. Unfortunately, I got bogged down with all the other journalism stuff that I was doing. So I was not a 4-year Quidditch pro. But I always think about what would have happened if I was.
I mean, listen, you could have been taking a whole different path than being at Entertainment Tonight where you are now, right?
Yes. But I mean, my experiences with WBN more than made up for it. I was able to go to the red carpet for the Emmys and the Oscars my senior year. That was my first time actually visiting LA as well, and kind of like set me up for, okay, is this what I want to do after school? I did the LA program as my last semester. So even with the Emmys and Oscar experience, I felt like I didn't have enough time exploring the city. And that was a big reason why I decided to stay here afterwards.
Oh, absolutely. And, just kind of easy transition here to Rob. As we've been mentioning, the Oscars live events, is that something that you participated in at Emerson? And while giving a shout out to Marty Cook, who started the Emmys, did you participate in any of the television stuff when you were at Emerson?
I mean, when I first came to Emerson, I thought I wanted to be, well, I went through a couple different phases my freshman year. I thought I wanted to work in sports television. And then I realized I didn't know enough about sports to be a sports television producer, because those guys can coach teams, let alone produce the TV shows. And that sort of faded away. And then I was like, well, I like history, and maybe I'll go into news. And then somehow I just became involved in, not somehow, but I volunteered to become involved with EIV. And I was really interested, even as a kid, I watched live television, like the Olympic opening ceremonies or the Oscars. And it's just something I was always fascinated with, but never really put it together until I came to Emerson. And then I did the Evvies for 3 years in different positions throughout those years. What we did on the Evvies, we came up with systems that you needed to come up with in order to produce a show of that scale. And interestingly enough, so many of those things are what we actually do in real life. So it's kind of interesting. You created these systems out of necessity, and you realize once you leave school, a lot of those are actual things in place. We didn't have advisors from the award show world, like they do now. But back then it was just doing what we needed to do to survive.
And we actually had a really interesting conversation on the alumni board just a few weeks back, just talking about the fact that there's little things or big things like the Evie Awards that can connect alum for years to come, right? And so there's the Alumni Award of Distinction that gets presented every single year from students to a faculty or to an alum. And then I think there's this idea that you're getting judged by industry professionals, which is so special. And I think really cool that Emerson allows that type of critique, allows that type of real world experience. And so Marty, going to you, tell us a little bit about you starting the Evvies, and if that maybe even helped kind of rocket you to Full House or, any of your endeavors in comedy.
Well, it did actually. Starting the Evvies with my good friend Glenn Meehan, my co-creator, was just an amazing experience in the way that it was so bonding. It took so much time. And I think we're really amazed to look at where it is today, all of these decades later. But I think the interesting thing about the Evvies that I go back to sometimes that did prepare me for the real world is that Glenn and I brought with our professor, this lovely woman named Mickey Dickoff. She's a television professor and producer. And we brought the idea of having the Evie Awards to Emerson. And you know what they said? No. They said they wouldn't give us any money and to get it up and running. And they said, I remember to this day, the dean said, if I had a penny for every student that came into my office with an idea, I wouldn't need to be a dean anymore. But what it taught, I think, Glenn and I, is that you don't have to take no for an answer. And that is really what I think has given me strength, inner strength in the industry, is that you're always going to hear no. And it's just a fact of life. And that if you just are passionate about your idea and what you want to accomplish, and you refuse to take no for an answer, it will come back eventually, maybe sometimes many years later, as a yes, or it often does. So it's really about passion. But that's what I learned at Emerson. That's where I got my first rejection from the school. No Evie Awards. Yes, Evie Awards.
We love it. We love it. And I think sticking on this organization that transcends the students at Emerson, is there a better organization than WERS? And I just feel like it's so Boston connected. It's so alumni connected. It is the most real world experience that when you step on campus, you're like, oh, that's a real radio station. Was that initially what it was like for you, Tina?
It was. Let me just say, I came to Emerson as a FAST student. Do you guys still have the Freshman Academic Studies program? Shout out to Dr. Bashir, who welcomed me into Emerson. Math was never my strong point, and that sunk my SATs just a little bit, but my English and writing were outstanding. And so I ended up coming to Emerson under the freshman academic studies program. So that's one thing. But after I got accepted, I came to visit Emerson College. And I went to the WERS studios. And the first person that I met was Howard D. Simpson. And D was on the mixer. He was, doing his thing on the radio. And I said, wow, I was like, how much do you guys get paid? This is great. And he said, we're students. We don't get paid. I'm like, no. I was like, you get a lot of money for this. I was like, I'm coming to this college because I want to make a lot of money doing this thing on the radio that you guys are doing. And D's like, no, we're students. I'm like, really? And so I think that seeing the crew and how professional they were and the board and how they were working the board and just the level of articulation and swagger and confidence, I'm like, you know what? I want to be at this university because if they're teaching people how to do what this man is doing, I want to learn how to do that too. And so immediately, got into the program and was a BJ member, broadcast journalism major rather, under the great Marcia Della who was really tough. She was really, really hard. And, Marcia, she was tough. She was consistent. And that's what I needed, when I got in the industry, I was like, oh, this is nothing. I understand. I know how to deal with this. I know how to deal with you news directors. Not really, but, at least you did have some exposure to it with Marcia. So, Emerson for me was a confidence builder because anybody who knows Emerson, just like us and the people who are watching, we're go-getters at Emerson. And so you get a room full of go-getters, a class full of go-getters, and it's like everybody's going to get them, not necessarily competing against each other, but more so trying to be the best that we can be. And I think that that's what you get from Emerson College, and I have always carried that with me throughout my career. This day I keep in touch with Marcia. She's, being my professor and my advisor when I was at Emerson, I just would be so, my stomach would be in knots when I had to go talk to Marcia about something, but now I understand that she was tough because she really saw that I could do this job if I focused and put my mind to it, right? And so she really was one of those people who said to me, look, if you want to do this, and I know you can, you have the talent and the ability, these are the areas where we need to focus.
I do want to mention, since we haven't gone in depth as to exactly what you all are up to right now, or some of the big projects that you've had be successful within the last 10, 20 years. I would love if you guys could talk a little bit about some of the highlights of your career and following that up with, what it means to be recognized for those accomplishments. Why don't we start with you, Rob?
I always find it hard to talk about. I don't know. I mean, I'm doing what I've always wanted to do, which I'm really, not everybody in the world gets to do that. So I'm extremely lucky and fortunate, and Emerson's a big part of that. I work in primarily live, large scale events like Oscars and Super Bowl halftime shows and things like that. And I've been fortunate to do that for the last, whatever it is, 30 years since I graduated, for the most part. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of stress, but this is something that feeds me, that I love doing. And, to be recognized by Emerson for having that success because of Emerson it means a lot. I owe a lot to the school and the people that helped me through that school, and professors and advisors and friends. And, I was really surprised when this came out and somebody asked me to be a part of this, and really happy at the same time. So, I'm very happy to be here.
We'll stick with the LA folks. So Hunter, tell us a little bit about what you're up to right now.
Sure. So I started after Emerson working at E, where I was working on The Rundown, which was the first non-scripted show that was native to Snapchat. So it was a lot of development and using new technologies that really hadn't been used before on a different app, and finding different ways to tell a story. While I was there, I got to interview everybody from Kendall Jenner at Coachella to Ross Lynch when he was doing his Ted Bundy movie. That was so fun. I loved that job. And now I work at Entertainment Tonight, where I do social. I'm a social video producer for them. My job has changed a lot over the past 2 years. I started right in January of 2020. And by December of 2020, it was a completely different job. People didn't really want to hear that much about celebrity news. So I had to actually go back to my hard news roots. I covered a lot of, the Black Lives Matter movement and the COVID pandemic and the election. And I found that my background in hard news and having Marsha really helped in a way that other people might not have had that experience before. So now I do a lot of like video production. I do a lot of like, if we have like a 17-minute video with Jessica Chastain from the Oscars, I'll take that and I'll cut that down and put it across social media and find the best parts. And I get to see it all before it goes live, which is really, really cool.
That is awesome. And let's talk to you, Tina, about, those journalism roots, and now you're thriving in Boston.
Yes, my hometown. And so anybody who is in broadcast news, as you know, Megan, you kind of have to travel around, right? So you get that first commercial TV local job, and then you move here and you move there. And thankfully, I've been able to come back here to Boston, which is where I'm from. I'm from Cambridge originally, Hunter. So you're from Fall River. I'm from Cambridge. I know all about Fall River, which it's Fall River. It's not Fall River.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah,
I had to take classes in school to get rid of that Fall River accent.
Yeah. Do you guys still have voice and articulation class? Because that's where I learned to get rid of the hard park the car.
Professional voice and speech.
That's what it's called. It's called now?
That's what it's called now.
Okay. All right. So anyway, worked as a local reporter in commercial news. And worked my way up to being a national television host, which is really what I always wanted to do. And I always wanted to do longer form work. So I started with WGBH local news and national at the same time here in Boston in 2014 as a reporter for local news, and then also for the host of the local USA series, which is what I do now. It's in 33 million households. It's a PBS family production. And we do longer form stories. For instance, we flew to Flint, Michigan, and we did a half-hour special on the water crisis. And we're talking to, one beautiful middle-class family who is kind of suffering, hoping that they were able to come home and, educate their children and buy their home and live in Flint. And it just was not working out that way. So, I really love to connect with people. And I love to be able to tell stories in a way that would help someone like Marty, like Hunter, like Rob connect with that person. And that's one of the skills that I learned at Emerson. One of the things I want to say about Emerson that I really appreciate, and I recognize being a professor now, that many of my students don't have that experience. I would walk into an Emerson class and I could see anybody. I could see someone with purple hair rocking it out. I could see somebody with an afro, we're getting ready to, do the news. And, there's so much diversity at Emerson, which I really appreciate. That makes you a better journalist, If the first time you experience someone who may be transgender is when you walk into a newsroom, that's not cool, right? You should be able to have some exposure to all different kinds of people. And that's what Emerson does. It does it, and it also allows everyone to rise to that level of excellence where you're not looking at someone like they're different from me, because of X, Y, Z. It's like, no, actually, they're kicking butt as a journalist, and I actually kind of want to get to their level, right? So, I think that Emerson really helped me with that because I love being able to tell stories that maybe aren't being told. I can walk into a room and tell anybody's story, and I have no trepidation about it whatsoever. Not so much the case at many of these universities, but Emerson, is on the money when it comes to that.
When you first heard, Tina, that, you were getting this award, what did you think?
Oh, I was like, really? I was excited. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm like, I don't know. When you hear distinguished alumni, and then I'm like, yeah, I did graduate in 97. Ew. Right? Because I never tell anybody my age. So I'm like, I went to college when I was 12, and that's how I got here. And, yeah. So it was really exciting, though. It was an honor. It really is. I mean, Emerson, what can I say, about the training that you get at this university?
Last but not least, Marty Cook, tell us a little bit about, your position where you are right now, and a little bit about, your thoughts on getting this award.
Well, I am working at Emerson. I am the director of the BFA in Comedic Arts and the founding director of the Center for Comedic Arts. I started out from Emerson writing some comedy, like some shows. I was very lucky to write for Full House and a couple of other shows. And I eventually made my way back to New England because I thought I had enough connections from the West Coast, and I wanted to be someplace out of LA where I could write. And I just had this fantasy of living in a small town, small New England town, where I would write and the seasons would go by outside my window and inspire me, which they have. But I got a call from Emerson one day and they said, would you be interested in teaching? And I said, God, no, never. But I learned that, always take that interview because you never know where it's going to go. So I went in and they said, well, why don't you just try one class? And if you don't like it, you don't have to come back. And I was just inspired by the students. They were just absolutely wonderful. And so I learned from them. I continue to write, and I just learned from them. And it's wonderfully inspiring. How do I feel about getting this award? It's like, it's the writer who can't really put it into words because I never would have expected it. And I got a call from, as many of you guys might have, from somebody that you went to school with or somebody this guy that I went to school with way back in the 80s. And I knew his name, Lou Loria. You can't forget that name, but I hadn't been in touch with him for a long time. And it was just super sweet, unexpected and super sweet. So thank you to the board.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to kind of throw a question at you guys, and I want you to really think back. Hunter, this may be a little bit easier for you, you youngin' you. I mean, put yourself in, college right now when you were back at Emerson. What is the one thing that you would say to that person who you were at the time?
I think what I tell a lot of people, and I would probably tell myself, was just be brave. Even if you aren't, find somewhere, dig deep inside and expose yourself to things that you may have not wanted to expose yourself to or never thought you'd be interested in, and open yourself up to as much as possible. And that not only goes for being in school, but in life. Once you leave, it's half of life is just about being brave, maybe more than that.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I would say, be brave. Go for it, have a plan. Many times when you graduate from college, especially coming from a school like Emerson, you think, okay, I have my reel and I'm just, I'm so ready to do this, right? I think I would probably tell myself, don't worry about the no's, because especially when you do, Megan, this, when you're in front of the camera, right? Someone may say, what, I'm not looking for a Black reporter. I'm just not, right? And that's reality. I think that I would probably tell myself, keep it pushing, keep moving, right? Don't worry about it. If you get knocked down, you get back up. You have to get back up. In order to keep moving, you have to get back up. I think I would have told myself that more then. Yeah, because I think you graduate and you just think, okay, they're just going to love me. It's like, not really, not everybody. Not everybody.
I would tell myself, just do the thing. Like, sign up for the extra club, like go out, have fun. For the rest of your life, you're going to have a job to focus on, and that is going to take up the majority of your time. So take the time that you're in college to just try everything. If you don't like it, if it doesn't stick, if you're not the best at it, that's a-okay. You'll grow because of it. I think I spent a lot of my college career focused on, if I don't get a job right after graduation, that's it. Like, I'm going to be done. A lot of the decisions I made sort of came from that assumption that it's do or die. But I think that, if I played Quidditch for a little while longer, or I tried choir or something I've never done before, I would still be where I am today, but would have had that extra experience, that one more Emerson experience under my belt.
I would say, don't be afraid of failure. Embrace failure. Failure can be your best friend if you learn from it. because if you fail and you learn from it, then you grow. But a fear of failure can hold you back. And I remember a few years ago, Max Muchnick was at Emerson, and he was giving this talk. And, one of the things he said to me, even at my age, that really opened up my mind and just got me going in a different way was, he said, you cannot succeed if you are afraid to fail. And it's so true. And so I now embrace failure. Does it still scare me a little? Yes, it does. But I think you can't let it hold you back. And I would also say just always be genuine, because I think genuineness comes through, especially in an industry that has a reputation for people not always coming off as genuine. I always tell students that character is everything. If you lose your reputation, it's gone forever. So you just really have to go out and just be who you are, be a good person, and don't ever let go of, we all know what's right and what's wrong, and always hold on to what's right and your values, and it will come through.
I always tell my students that talent will get you there, but character, like you're talking about, Marty, will keep you there. And that's real talk, as far as, especially in this broadcast journalism world, how many people, Megan, have you seen? One day you see them, next day they're not on the air anymore, and it's like,
Yep.
They're not really, it's not really who they are. Yeah. So, being a genuine person, having that character, like Marty said, will help you go really far. Much further, I think. I think many people would prefer someone who's genuine, earnest, hardworking, and sincere over someone who's uber talented, but a complete jerk.
You may
So
not
true.
realize it first, but eventually it comes through.
Mm-hmm. All things in time, am I right?
In time.
Okay, now is the chance where we get to kind of give some shout outs. So I'm going to kind of give my example, if this is cool. I graduated from Emerson, was looking for a job in the industry. NBC North Dakota News popped up on my little job opening. It was a morning news anchor position in Bismarck. And I realized, oh, well, the current person who holds that position was 2 years ahead of me at Emerson. And the 11 p.m. anchor graduated last year. And I talked to her the day before for some advice, right? And so sure enough, I was a shoo-in for the position because of the quote unquote Emerson Mafia, right? And so I just think that there's this web of people, the Emerson Mafia, who you either see on your journey, maybe they lift you up on your journey. I mean, are there any Emersonians in your web of career success or career stories that really played a role in helping you get to the next level?
Gosh, so many. Jerry Wardwell from WCVB Channel 5. He hired me as a writer, and at the same time, I was working as a reporter for NECN. Gosh, there's so many people from Emerson. The Emerson Mafia is really strong. Just a real quick story. I was in California shooting. We were doing a 25th anniversary of the LA riots. We were doing a special for GBH. And I show up at this restaurant and I'm just sitting there having a cup of coffee. And this guy comes in and he has on a Red Sox hat. And I said, you from Boston? He's like, no, I went to Emerson. I said, I went to Emerson. And so I said, who do you know from Emerson? And he said, Marcia Della Justina. I was like, I know Marcia. She was my advisor. And so it turns out that he was a producer for like an LA station. But we had this really interesting conversation. And I say that to say, you just never know where an Emerson Mafia member is going to show up. And it's always good to make sure that you're on your A game, especially when you're kind of out and about in the world where people are go-getting and that kind of thing. More likely than not, there's an Emersonian in the crowd.
I'm still shocked to this day. You're in a meeting or whatever, and somehow, some way, Emerson will come up, and there's someone in the meeting or two people in the meeting, or someone said, I went to Emerson too. So I'm always surprised. Happily surprised.
At every job I've had so far outside of school, I've known somebody who's gone to Emerson, whether they've been in a manager position or just in the department with me. And I think that's incredible. I have to give a shout out to Megan Camara. She graduated a few years above me. And we actually met at summer camp back in Fall River. And She really was like my mentor for years and years. She helped me. We never crossed paths in school because she was, I'm not sure, maybe like 5 years older than me. But she helped me through Marsha's class when I ended up taking Marsha's class. And then she moved to LA before I did. So when I moved here as a just graduated college, looking for a job, like don't know what I'm going to do situation, she really, really helped me out in every aspect, in helping me find a job and telling me what I was worth and helping me find a place to live. I don't think I would have been able to successfully navigate my first few years in LA without having somebody like that by my side.
I, like everybody here, run into Emersonians all the time. I would give a shout out to Lisa Gregorian. A few years back, I have this book on television writing, and when the war in Afghanistan was going on, these two soldiers read my book in Afghanistan. And they called me up and they wanted to do a comedy about the war in Afghanistan. And they wanted some advice. So I said, oh, okay. And I booked like a half hour to talk to them. And the call lasted 3 hours. And they were so fascinating, the things they had to tell about what war was like in Afghanistan. And so I hung up and then I called them back and I said, can I work on this project with you? And long story short, we developed a comedy on the war in Afghanistan. And I did what I advised all of my students to do. Go look for Emerson alums. They're always helpful. And so I contacted Lisa Gregorian at Warner Brothers. I didn't know her. I'd never met her. I had heard of her. I knew she was high up there. I contacted her and she was so kind. She put me in touch with the head of network at Warner Brothers, and they let me pitch. And Warner Brothers developed the show. They brought Jerry Bruckheimer in, and we went out and pitched it to 4 networks, and we got a yes from 3 out of 4. And it went to NBC. The soldiers came home and were at the pitch. It was really wonderful, but I owe it all to Lisa. And the beauty of it is that, again, it was just an Emerson connection. And when I'd be in meetings at Warner Brothers, and they all knew and loved Lisa, and it's like, I never met her. I'm here working with you guys, but I've never met her. And finally I did. But I think that there's so many stories like that. Everybody's got a story about how the Emerson Mafia, you reach out to people, we're family. And I think that's what makes this college different from others. We are a family and we help each other wherever we can. And I think that's what makes Emerson so special.
It's so true. And I think especially now that I live in the Midwest, I'm realizing more and more that there's like so much pride for a lot of the big schools out here, right? So like Ohio State or Michigan or IU or whatever. But at the same time, they're so big that it's not this cohesive experience that so many people all feel. Like I feel like there's just like, it's such a small school that when someone says they're an Emersonian, it's like, I feel so connected to you because there's very few people who've been through this experience of going to Emerson, which, as we know, is a very unique experience in itself. But I want to go to the last question now, which is just tell me about, what you guys got coming up, anything that we should be excited for, looking out for, any dates that we should be aware of things premiering or whatever, or ongoing things that you guys are involved in. Why don't we start with you, Marty, since you left us off?
Oh no.
The luxury all playing along of going last. So
that's right. Yes. I don't have any dates coming up, but I am a writer at heart, and my best days are when I can just get up and get a cup of coffee and start pounding that computer. And so I'm just about to come out with a new comedy script that I'm really, really excited about. And then I'm going to start working this summer on a drama. An agent, an Emersonian, said, get me something with, I shouldn't say this, but he said, get me something with sex and violence, well, because that's what sells. So you know what? I'm getting something with sex and violence, but I'm sprinkling in female empowerment. And that's what I'm working on.
And you know what? I love it's flashy like Emerson. It's has a deeper meaning like Emerson too. Rob?
There's a lot of stuff going on. Fortunately, there's so much content being produced in Los Angeles or everywhere these days, which is great for so many of us. I have a Netflix thing that we're shooting in June. Also mid-May, we're doing the first live show for Disney Plus from Epcot Center, which will be fun. And then there's a couple of those live musicals that we're getting into later in the year. So can't say what they are, but those come out, in the fall. So
Awesome.
Around Christmas time. So yeah, always trying to stay busy.
Of course. All right, Hunter?
Well, one thing that I learned at Emerson that I still think reigns true is that the next job I have or the job that I have in 5 years hasn't been invented yet. That was the case with my job at E. That was the case now with social media. Things just change so quickly that I don't know what my next step is going to take me, but I'm excited for it. I definitely want to focus next on maybe getting more bylines and getting more into like long format writing. That's something that's always interested me. But right now, award season just ended. I'm exhausted and I'm looking forward to taking a break.
Also very needed.
Yes.
All right, last but not least, Tina, close us out.
Let's see. So I am co-hosting a podcast that we hope to distribute nationally for the Boston Globe. And it is about an infamous murder in Boston in the 80s. We can't say the exact name of it, but one of our editors is an Emerson alum. So that's Emerson Mafia once again. But you can always see episodes of Local USA through your PBS station. And we're on every Monday at 9 p.m. And, just continuing to inspire, students also through my position at Boston University. And I want my students, like I would encourage anybody watching here, bring your full self to the table, to the newsroom, to your opportunity. Don't shrink back, be yourself because that's undefeated. There's nobody like you. So, I do hope that, watching us, that people are inspired and they're encouraged. Quick shout out to Ebony, Emerson's Black organization with natural interest. That was like my, wonderful affinity group when I was at Emerson, and they just gave me so much love and support. So shout out to everybody at Ebony.
All right. Well, thank you all so much to the award winners for sharing your stories and your advice with everyone. I think, going to Emerson is obviously this amazing experience that we all went through, but I think reflecting on it can be a moment where we can recognize so much about how far we've come, how far our journeys have taken us and our careers have come. And so I just really appreciate you all sharing your stories and advice with everyone. With that said, have a great night, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.